Back in October of 2021, during my sophomore year at a mid-sized college in upstate New York, I was assigned to a dorm that most students didn't want, Hillcrest Hall. It wasn't that it was old or rundown, it was just off. People said weird stuff happened there. Rumors, mostly, about a student who disappeared from the third floor decades ago and how no one had ever been placed in that specific room since. At the time, I didn't really care. I just needed housing, and Hillcrest had availability. I was placed in room 312, right next door to the infamous room 314. That room was locked and had no name on the door, unlike all the others. No one ever saw it open. It didn't even seem like the cleaning staff went in. The first few weeks were uneventful, besides the usual mid-semester stress. I was buried in papers, group projects, and too much caffeine. Most nights, I'd be up late studying with my desk lamp on while the rest of the floor went quiet. That's when I started hearing it, the scraping. At first I thought it was just someone dragging furniture on the floor above me, but I quickly realized the floor above me was the top floor. There was no one above me. The noise always came late, around 3 a.m. It wasn't loud, just a steady, soft, dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across a rough surface. It seemed to come from the other side of my wall, room 314. I tried to ignore it, but the noise happened often enough that it started affecting my sleep. One night, out of pure frustration, I walked out into the hallway at 3:07 a.m. and stood in front of 314. I expected silence, but I could hear it from out there too. The dragging, the soft, rhythmic sound like something pacing back and forth, slow and deliberate. I leaned in close, and for a moment I could have sworn I heard breathing. I knocked once. The sound stopped instantly, just gone. No shuffle, no retreat, just silence. I backed away and returned to my room, locking the door behind me. The next morning I asked my RA about it. She looked uncomfortable and told me no one had been assigned that room in years. It was off limits, she said. Maintenance access only. I asked her what that even meant, but she wouldn't elaborate, just said if I kept hearing noises I should log a report, and I submitted one later that day but never heard back. Over the next couple of nights, the scraping came back. Louder now. I stopped investigating. I put in earplugs, blasted white noise, anything to drown it out. It worked until that Thursday. I'd fallen asleep at my desk around midnight with my laptop still open. I woke up to a loud bang. My door had slammed shut. I didn't remember leaving it open, but maybe I had. I turned on the light and froze. My desk chair, the one I'd been sitting in, was now turned to face the window. That wasn't how I left it. As I walked toward it, I saw something on the floor. 2 deep scratches in the linoleum, parallel lines running from the base of the chair to the center of the room, like it had been pulled or pushed. I checked the lock. It was still engaged. No one could have come in. But then I noticed something that nearly made me fall over. The scratches didn't stop at my door. They continued under the thin wall that separated my room from 314. There was a small bulge in the baseboard, like the wall wasn't solid. I backed away and didn't sleep at all that night. I tried switching rooms, even buildings, but everything was full. I was stuck. I avoided staying in the room more than necessary, and when I did, I left the lights on and never let myself fall asleep near the wall. One night near Halloween, our floor threw a party. I went just to avoid being alone. A girl I didn't know well approached me after overhearing a conversation I had with a friend about 314. She said she used to live in 312 the year before. I asked her if she heard things too. She nodded slowly, like she didn't want to talk about it, but had been waiting for someone else to bring it up. Then she told me something I still think about. One night, she had gotten curious, just like I had, and placed a mirror on her side of the wall, right where the sound always came from. Not to see into the room, obviously, but just to reflect what might be happening near that space. The mirror fogged up while she slept, and when she woke up there was a handprint inside the glass, as if someone had pressed their hand on the opposite side of the wall, but from within the mirror. I didn't know what to say. That weekend I went home. I told my parents I was sick and needed a break. While I was away, I got a call from my RA. She sounded nervous. She told me that someone had broken into room 314. Campus security found the door pried open and the inside completely wrecked. Dust everywhere, gouges in the walls and claw marks on the floorboards. The weirdest part? The room had no furniture, no bed, no desk, Just an old, cracked mirror lying face down in the corner. No fingerprints, no sign of forced entry on the outside. After that, they sealed the room permanently and moved me to another building. I finished the semester without any more issues, but sometimes I dream of that dragging sound again, that slow, deliberate movement right on the other side of the wall, and when I wake up, I find my desk chair turned ever so slightly, facing the nearest mirror. In early March of 2022, I was a junior at a small university in Oregon, and I spent most of my nights in the campus library or in Keller Hall's study basement. It was quiet, never crowded, and the Wi-Fi actually worked better down there than in my dorm. Keller Hall was one of the oldest buildings on campus, originally a residence hall before it got converted into faculty offices and general-use classrooms. The basement had a few private study rooms with frosted glass doors and single desks. Students rarely used them at night, which made them perfect for cramming undisturbed. One Tuesday night, after my roommate brought a loud group back to our dorm, I decided to study late in Keller. I brought my laptop, headphones and 2 energy drinks, figuring I'd be there until at least 1 or 2 a.m. The building was basically deserted by the time I got there around 10. I headed down the wide staircase to the basement, lights humming above me, and chose the last study room at the end of the hallway, room B7. I'd never used that one before, but it was clean and quiet. I shut the door behind me and set up my laptop, music low in my ears, typing away on a paper. Around 11:30, I got up to stretch my legs and walk to the vending machine upstairs. When I stepped out into the hallway, I noticed something strange. The other study room doors, B1 through B6, had their lights off, but room B4 had its frosted window illuminated with a strange reddish glow. Like a lava lamp or an old halogen bulb, nothing like the building's cold fluorescent lighting. I paused outside the door for a second, but the hallway was silent. Curious, but not wanting to be weird, I just moved on, got my drink, and returned to B7. 15 minutes later, as I typed, I heard what sounded like someone pacing in the hallway. Slow steps, not rushed. I assumed it was a security officer doing rounds, but the sound kept stopping directly outside my room and starting again, like someone was pacing back and forth just outside the door. I paused my music and waited, then it stopped completely. I opened the door quickly to catch whoever it was, but no one was there. The hallway was empty, the other room lights were still off, except for B4. Still that faint reddish glow. I walked over to it, trying not to let my nerves get to me. As I got closer, I noticed something on the frosted glass, dark smears, like someone had touched it with ink or grease. The pattern looked almost like handprints, but too long, with too many fingers. I leaned forward slightly, trying to see through the blur. That's when something moved. A shape, tall and thin, shifted on the other side, like it had been standing inches from the door, staring back at me the whole time. I didn't wait to find out who or what it was. I went straight back to B7, locked the door, and packed up to leave. But when I turned back toward the hallway, I saw something that stopped me cold. All the lights in the hallway had gone off except one, room B4, still glowing red, and now the door was open. I stared, waiting for someone to step out, but nothing moved. I wasn't about to go check, so I sat frozen for a few minutes, hoping the light would just turn off and I could tell myself it was some glitch. But it didn't. I decided to go. I cracked open my door and peeked out. Still no movement. I moved fast down the hallway toward the stairs, eyes fixed straight ahead. As I passed B4, I risked one glance inside. The room was empty, completely bare. No chair, no desk, no lamp. Nothing. That didn't make sense. All the study rooms were identical, each had the same setup, but B4 was just blank concrete walls and a single red bulb dangling from a cord. I sprinted up the stairs and out of the building without looking back. The next morning I went to the campus office to report it. The staff member looked confused and told me Keller's basement study rooms were closed indefinitely due to asbestos issues. No one was supposed to be using them. I told her I had used room B7 just last night. She insisted that entire section had been sealed off for over a year and pulled up a facility map. There were only 5 study rooms listed, B1 to B5. There was no B6, no B7, and definitely no B4. I walked back to Keller during the daylight, heart pounding the whole time. When I got to the basement door, it was padlocked shut with a sign taped over it, no access, maintenance only. I never went back inside, never told anyone else on campus except for one close friend, but I still think about that room, that red glow, those 2 long handprints, and the thing standing just behind the glass, waiting. The worst part, every now and then my email gets a new message in the university inbox from an address that doesn't exist in the directory. No subject line, no content. Just the time it was sent, always 11:47 p.m., the exact minute I first stood outside that door. In late August of 2022, I transferred to a university in Ohio and moved into a small off-campus house that I shared with one other student. His name was Caleb. We didn't know each other before moving in, but things started off fine. He kept to himself mostly, kind of quiet but respectful. He was a senior majoring in philosophy, always reading weird books or scribbling in notebooks filled with symbols I didn't recognize. I figured he was just eccentric, maybe a little pretentious, but harmless. The house was old, creaky, and cold in weird spots, even during late summer. Our bedrooms were on opposite sides of the hall upstairs, with a shared bathroom between them. The walls were thin. I could always hear when Caleb was pacing, talking on the phone, or typing on his laptop. But some nights I'd hear him whispering when I knew he was alone. Not talking, just whispering steadily for long periods of time. It wasn't until the 3rd week that things started to feel wrong. One night around 2 a.m. I woke up to the sound of something moving in my room. I sat up, heart racing, and saw nothing but shadows. I chalked it up to a bad dream or the old wood creaking. But the next morning I found my desk chair had been turned to face the corner of the room. I knew I hadn't left it like that. Later that day I asked Caleb if he'd heard anything strange at night. He just smiled and said, "The house settles a lot. It gets worse the longer you're here." I laughed, unsure if he was joking. That evening he left to stay at a friend's place for a couple nights. Said he had a group project to work on and needed a change of scenery. I didn't mind. I thought having the place to myself would help me get some reading done. That night was quiet, at first. Around midnight I was in bed scrolling through my phone when I heard footsteps in the hallway, not creaking, not shifting, actual footsteps. I thought maybe Caleb had come back without saying anything. But when I got up and looked down the hall, it was empty. His door was still open, lights off. No one there. I stood in the hallway for a while, just listening. There were no more footsteps, but I got the unsettling feeling I wasn't alone. I slept with my bedroom door locked after that. The following day, I went into Caleb's room out of pure curiosity. I knew it was a boundary-crossing move, but I couldn't shake the sense that something about him wasn't right. His desk was covered in open books, all in strange languages. Some looked like they were printed backward, others had diagrams of eyes, circles and phrases scribbled in red ink like "he listens when the light dies" and mouths behind the walls. That one stuck with me. There were dozens of Polaroids stacked in a shoebox under his bed. Most were dark, grainy shots of empty hallways or ceilings, but a few had blurry shapes, long figures that didn't look human. One of them was a photo of our hallway at night. The timestamp was from 2 nights ago. In the image, something was standing just outside my door, tall, thin, head bent unnaturally low. I put everything back and left his room as fast as I could. But I didn't sleep that night. I sat in bed with the lights on and the door locked, waiting for morning, but around 3:15 a.m. my light flickered and went out. Just mine. I heard the floorboards groan outside my door, then a soft knocking, 4 taps, then silence. I didn't move, didn't speak. After about a minute I heard something slide under the door. When I finally got the courage to check, it was one of Caleb's Polaroids, another hallway shot. Only this one was from inside my room and I was asleep in the bed. The photo had been taken from the ceiling corner. I had no idea when or how. I packed a bag the next morning and waited until Caleb returned. I told him I had family stuff and needed to stay somewhere else. He didn't look surprised. In fact, he nodded and said, "It gets to everyone, eventually." I asked what he meant. He just shrugged and said, "This house has a presence. You just notice it more when you're alone." I moved into a dorm 2 days later. Weeks passed. I tried to forget about the house, tried to ignore the nightmares of long shadows bending through narrow doorways. Then one evening I got an email. No subject, no message, just an attachment. It was a picture taken at night from outside a window, my dorm window. I was inside, asleep, and in the corner of the image, barely visible, stood Caleb. Or something shaped like him, but taller, arms too long and no face. I've changed dorms twice since then. No forwarding address. I blocked Caleb on everything. But sometimes I get calls from unknown numbers. The voicemails are always silent, except for the sound of breathing, right behind the microphone, like someone standing very, very close. And once, just once, I played one of them backward out of paranoia. It wasn't silence, it was whispering. A voice saying the same thing over and over again. Roommate required. If these student horror stories kept you on edge, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. More true nightmares are just one click away, and class is never truly dismissed.